Antler injuries are really cool, and the injuries can be based on where the injury to the body occurred. For example, the way that the nerves come up a deer's body from the back, they cross in the neck. So any injury to the back of a deer, the opposite antler will be impacted. Now this is a little different if a deer is injured in the front, one of the shoulders. That injury can affect the antler on the same side, the opposite side, or both sides. It's not as clearly understood exactly why that is, but extremely clear. A deer is injured in the back. If it's traumatic enough to cause an antler injury, in every case, it'll be on the opposite side, which is pretty neat because then it's something that we can follow these deer through the life. And in many cases, if that injury is traumatic enough to cause a deformed antler, the deer will then have deformed antlers in successive years. Not always, it's not 100%, but in most cases, it will continue to have some type of deformity for the rest of its life. Deer actually sleep a lot more than most hunters realize because they have to sleep to recharge their bodies and refresh themselves. The thing is, they don't necessarily sleep like humans do, where they're not going to lay down, close their eyes, and be completely out for hours at a time. And in fact, a lot of research shows that deer sleep through numerous bouts during the course of the day, but it's often in very short segments, 15 to 30 minutes at a time. And the entire time they're sleeping, they can be very alert. Think about it, they're a prey species, so their ears are always going, and even while sleeping, the ears can be moving to pick up sounds, and they can be alerted immediately to be able to jump up and flee from danger if possible. Now, as far as where they sleep, it typically is in areas that they feel most secure, so it's often in some of the heaviest cover. And it's often why hunters don't see a lot of them sleeping, because when we see them either on stand or coming to a food situation, they are up and they are moving. However, I do know many hunters who have watched deer sleep when they are on stand and watch a deer come into a thick or a bedding area, bed down, and then during the course of the next 1 to 2 hours, watch that deer actually sleep while they feel secure. They can sleep with their head up, they can sleep with their head down, they may tuck their head behind them. So many times you may have seen some deer sleeping and not even realize it, but the key to it is they sleep every single day, numerous times during the day, and it's important to notice that they can flee from danger at a moment's notice. So who carries the most weight relative to what a buck fawn will have for future antler growth? Well, he gets half of the genes from his father, half from his mother, but he gets all of the maternal care from his mother. So what that means is if she is a dominant doe, she will get the best area for fawning. So he starts off a little better in life. If she has plenty of high quality food, he will get abundant high quality milk, which will allow him to express a higher percentage of his antler growth potential earlier in life. Now, the cool thing about doe's milk is, regardless if the doe is starved or on a high quality diet, quality of the milk is exactly the same that they're feeding their fawns. The difference is that doe in a high quality diet is able to produce a lot more milk to feed the fawn, allow them to grow faster, and then express more of their body and antler growth potential at an earlier age. So some people think, oh, all of what we have relative to future bucks out here is dictated by the buck, and that's not true at all. While he does give half of the genes, the mother is more responsible for exactly how that fawn is able to be recruited into that first age class. And current research shows that only about 33% of a buck's antler growth genes are actually heritable anyway. So what that means is you can have a really big buck that his fawns can have small antlers. Conversely, you can have small, mature bucks whose fawns can have huge antlers. It's not a guarantee that a large antlered buck is going to have large antlered sons or vice versa. So from a hunter's perspective or a manager's perspective, what's important to know is, hey, let's make sure that we can do the best job having the right number of deer for the area so that everybody is getting abundant food, do all we can to manage that habitat, and then make sure we move deer into those older age classes where they are most able to express their greatest antler growth potential. Antlers can be anywhere from really, really light colored to really dark chocolate or anything in between. A lot of factors can go into this. One can be a buck's genetics, can play a little bit into this. Two of it can be the environment that he lived in. Some people feel that if a buck is rubbing a lot on pine trees or other trees that have a lot of resin, it can cause them to be a little darker. And while there's a little bit of truth to that, more of that darkness is genetic related or how quickly or slowly that buck actually shed all that velvet. So what that means is when he's starting to shed, there's a lot of blood on those antlers. If all of that blood gets cleaned off very, very quickly, those antlers tend to be a little bit lighter in color. Conversely, if he tends to shed that velvet a little slowly and doesn't rub all that much and the blood stays on there longer, it tends to stain the antlers and they can be a little bit darker. Now, timing of the year also plays into this. Later in the season, particularly in the southwestern U.S., as those deer are exposed to intense sun, those antlers on any individual buck tend to get a little bit lighter later in the year than they would have if you would have harvested them early in the season. So whether you like those chocolate antlers, the light antlers, or something that's a little mix in between, know that they are unique to each buck that's out there, that they can change a little bit during the course of the season, and the variety in them is just one more of the ways that just makes whitetails one of the coolest species on the planet.